There comes a moment in every believer's life where God begins to stir the waters. The winds start shifting, doors start closing, and people who once walked with you can no longer go where God is taking you. This is not the season to hold on to what was. This is the season to shift, because the next level of your destiny requires a new version of you. You can't step into a new dimension wearing the garments of your old identity. You can't walk into promise while still holding the patterns of your past. God is saying, I'm not just changing your surroundings, I'm changing you. Everything that's been shaking in your life, every storm that's been breaking your comfort, every delay that's been stretching your faith. It's not punishment, it's preparation. God is reintroducing you to the wow you that was always hidden beneath the pain, the pressure, and the process. Growth always demands separation. There's a reason every time you start growing, something starts breaking away. It's not coincidence. It's divine order. Growth and separation are two sides of the same coin. You cannot evolve and expect everything around you to remain the same. Every time God calls you higher, something or someone that once fit comfortably in your life suddenly feels out of place, because elevation exposes what's not aligned with your next level. When a seed begins to grow, the first thing it does is separate from its shell. The shell that once protected it must now break so that life can emerge. The breaking isn't punishment, it's purpose. And the same principle applies to you. There are shells in your life, old habits, familiar circles, outdated thinking, that once served you but can no longer sustain you. When growth begins to press against those boundaries, the friction you feel is not the enemy. It's the evidence that you're expanding. Sometimes, separation feels like loss. You pray for God to enlarge your territory, but you didn't realize He'd have to prune your environment first. People you thought would walk with you forever start to drift away. Opportunities you were sure were yours suddenly vanish. Doors that were once open begin to close, and you start to wonder, what did I do wrong? But you didn't do anything wrong. You simply outgrew what used to hold you. God is too intentional to let you stay attached to anything that limits your future. Growth will always cost you comfort. You can't cling to what's familiar and reach for what's next at the same time. The problem is, we often try to carry old versions of ourselves into new seasons. We want the reward of transformation without the release that comes before it. But God can't pour new wine into old wineskins. He has to separate you from what can't stretch with you. That's why certain friendships begin to fade when you start to change. That's why conversations that once excited you now drain you. It's not pride, it's progress. When the eagle matures, it must go through a molting process. It isolates itself high in the mountains, plucks out its old feathers and waits as new ones grow. That season is painful and lonely, but necessary, because the feathers that carried it in its last season cannot sustain it in the next. The eagle understands that in order to soar again, it must shed what's weighing it down. In the same way, God will pull you into seasons of isolation so that He can do internal renovation. You may feel alone, but you're not abandoned. You're being renewed. Some separations won't make sense while you're in them. God will sometimes remove you from places you prayed to be in, or from people you thought you needed. But if you could see what He sees, you'd thank Him for every closed door. Not all subtraction is loss. Some is protection. Some people were assigned to your past, not your purpose. Some opportunities were meant to teach you, not to keep you. The separation is a sign that the season has served its purpose. There's also a spiritual dimension to separation. God doesn't just separate you from others. He separates you as unto himself. Before he releases you publicly, he refines you privately. Before he reveals you to the world, he redefines you in the wilderness. Think about Moses. Before he could lead Israel out of Egypt, he had to leave Egypt himself. Before David became king, he had to be separated from Saul's palace. Before Jesus began his ministry, he was led into the wilderness. Every major move of God starts with separation. You cannot grow without outgrowing something. And the truth is, growth doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it feels like heartbreak. You'll have days where you question if the pruning is worth the promise. But you must remember, the pain of separation is temporary, while the reward of growth is eternal. God isn't taking from you, he's making room for what's next. The space that feels empty now will soon be filled with something greater, something aligned with your destiny. If you look back, you'll notice that every major blessing in your life came after something broke off. You lost a job and it led to purpose. You ended a relationship and it brought clarity. You walked away from something familiar and it opened the door to something divine. That's not coincidence. That's the rhythm of growth. Every separation sets the stage for transformation. So stop mourning what God is moving. Don't let nostalgia chain you to an expired season. What you're losing is nothing compared to what you're about to gain. Some people can only love you at the level of your last version. They can't recognize the calling that's rising inside you. And that's okay. They're not meant to. You don't need everyone to understand your process. You just need to trust God's plan. Every shift, every shaking, every goodbye is part of heaven's strategy. Growth will stretch you, isolate you, and sometimes even break your heart. But it will also reveal the version of you that was buried beneath fear and familiarity. You can't become who you're called to be if you refuse to let go of who you were. So if God is pulling you away from something or someone in this season, don't fight it. Let him separate you. Let him refine you. Let him reposition you. Because growth always demands separation. And what feels like breaking right now is actually birthing. God is not subtracting your life. He's shaping it for the next dimension. The shell has to crack for the seed to live. The cocoon has to split for the butterfly to fly. The comfort zone has to close for destiny to open. Every time you grow, something must go. And that's not the end of your story. It's the beginning of yours becoming. Discomfort is the birthplace of transformation, and no one likes to be uncomfortable. We pray for breakthrough, we speak blessings, we declare favor. But when God answers those prayers with pressure, we start to wonder if he heard us correctly. What we fail to see is that discomfort is often the very tool God uses to shape us. It's not the enemy. It's the environment where change begins. Transformation doesn't start in comfort zones. It starts in the tension between what is and what could be. Every great move of God in your life begins with a season that stretches you. You start to feel uneasy where you once felt secure. The job that used to fulfill you now feels too small. The circle of friends that once fit perfectly suddenly feels distant. That uneasiness is not rejection, it's redirection. God is stirring something inside of you, telling you that it's time to grow, to move, to evolve. You can't become new while clinging to what feels safe. Growth and comfort cannot coexist. If you're comfortable, you're not growing. And if you're growing, you won't be comfortable. God uses discomfort as a divine alarm clock to wake you up to the next dimension of your destiny. Think about it. A baby doesn't grow in comfort. The womb that once protected it eventually becomes too small to contain it. The pressure that pushes the baby out is the same pressure that brings life forward. Without the pain of contraction, there would be no birth. The same is true for you. Without discomfort, there can be no transformation. You see, God is not as concerned with your comfort as He is with your calling. He's not trying to make you feel good. He's trying to make you become great. The shaking you're experiencing is not to destroy you, but to develop you. When God is preparing you for more, He will disrupt your comfort zone until you no longer fit inside it. He will make you too big for your old boundaries, too aware for your old habits, too anointed for your old associations, because the next version of you requires pressure. Discomfort reveals what's in you. Anybody can smile when everything is smooth, but character is proven when things get tight. It's in the tension that your faith is tested, your patience is purified, and your purpose is clarified. When God places you in an uncomfortable situation, He's not punishing you. He's pulling something out of you that you didn't know was there. Diamonds are formed under pressure, not peace. Oil flows only when the olive is crushed. Gold is refined only when it's placed in the fire. That fire may feel like it's destroying you, but it's actually refining you for destiny. Some of your greatest growth will come from the places that made you the most uncomfortable. Maybe it was that job that stretched your endurance, that relationship that forced you to confront your insecurities, that delay that challenged your patience. Every uncomfortable moment has a message. It's saying, you were not made to stay here. If God allowed you to feel at home in a small place, you would never step into a bigger one. So, He uses frustration as fuel for faith. He lets agitation push you toward activation. There's a story in the Bible where God tells Elijah to go to a brook for provision. Ravens brought him food every day, and the water flowed steadily. But after a while, the brook dried up. Now, if Elijah had clung to comfort, he would have died in that place. But God allowed the brook to dry to force him to move. The drying brook wasn't a curse. It was a call to shift. Likewise, when God dries up something in your life, He's saying, this season has served its purpose. It's time to go. Discomfort also builds dependence. When everything is easy, you lean on your strength. But when life gets hard, you start leaning on God. The struggle drives you to the source. You pray deeper, worship harder, listen closer. You start realizing that you don't grow in the sunshine. You grow in the storm. That's where your faith develops muscles. That's where your trust deepens roots. So don't despise discomfort. Don't rush to escape it. Ask God, what are you teaching me through this? Because the pain you're feeling might be the process that's preparing you. Some blessings only come wrapped in pressure. Some breakthroughs are born from broken places. God often hides His greatest transformations inside your toughest trials. Discomfort strips away illusions. It shows you what really matters. When everything around you shakes, you discover what's unshakable within you. You realize that your strength was never in the situation. It was in your Savior. That revelation alone is worth the struggle. Because once you know who you are under pressure, no amount of peace can make you forget your purpose. Even Jesus experienced divine discomfort. Before the cross, He went to Gethsemane, a place whose name literally means oil press. They're under immense pressure. He prayed, "Not my will, but yours be done." The discomfort of that moment led to the redemption of the world. If Jesus had to endure pressure to fulfill his purpose, why would we expect our process to be painless? Every time you feel uncomfortable, remind yourself this is the space where transformation begins. Butterflies don't form in comfort. They form in cocoons. The caterpillar must endure confinement before it can embrace flight. You may feel trapped right now, but you're not buried. You're being built. So the next time life gets uncomfortable, don't panic. Don't assume something is wrong. Recognize that something is right. The stretching means you're growing. The tension means you're transforming. The pressure means purpose is at work. Discomfort isn't a sign that God has left you. It's proof that He's with you, molding you, maturing you, and making you ready for what's next. You cannot rise without resistance. You cannot evolve without endurance. Transformation doesn't come through comfort, it comes through courage. The courage to stay in the process until the promise shows up. So embrace the discomfort. Let it refine you, not define you. Let it push you closer to God, because one day you'll look back on this season and realize that the very pain you prayed away was the pressure that produced your purpose. And you'll thank God, not for the comfort that kept you still, but for the discomfort that made you new. Sick, what God is removing, He's also replacing. There are moments in life when God starts taking things away, and you can't understand why. The friendship fades, the job ends, the plan falls apart, the door that once stood wide open suddenly slams shut. You pray, you fast, you question, because it feels unfair. But what if what you're calling loss is actually transition? What if God isn't taken from you? He's trading with you, removing what no longer serves your purpose, so He can replace it with something that fulfills it. God never subtracts without the intention to multiply. Every divine removal carries a divine replacement. But here's the tension. He never replaces before He removes. He clears the old to make space for the new. And because you can't see what's coming yet, the space in between feels like emptiness. That emptiness is not punishment, it's preparation. God can't fill hands that are still holding on to what He's trying to replace. We often cry over what we've lost without realizing that heaven is already working on the exchange. Sometimes God will allow something to be stripped from you because it no longer aligns with where you're going. What once blessed you can start to burden you when your assignment changes. The people, places, and positions that once fit your life may now limit it. God sees what you can't. He knows when something that used to serve you has started to stunt you. And in His love, He begins to remove it, even if it hurts. Think about Abraham. God told him to leave his country, his relatives, and his father's house, not because they were bad, but because they were no longer compatible with his calling. Abraham couldn't step into the promise while holding on to the familiar. He had to walk away from what was in order to walk into what could be. Every step away was a step towards something greater. The same is true for you. When God removes something, He's not reducing your life, He's redirecting it. The problem is, we often see removal as rejection. But God's no is often a setup for His next. He's not denying you. He's delivering you. You thought that person was essential. That opportunity was permanent. That season would last forever. But God knows what's on the other side of your obedience. And when you finally release what He's asking for, you'll discover that His replacement is always better than your resistance. There's a sacred pattern in Scripture: removal precedes renewal. Before God sent rain in Noah's day, he cleared the earth. Before Israel entered the promised land, he cleared the enemies out. Before Jesus brought salvation, he cleared the temple. God always removes before he restores. And that means if things are falling apart around you, they may actually be falling into place. What's being taken from you is not meant to leave you empty. It's meant to leave you ready. Ready for the upgrade, ready for the assignment, ready for the next level of glory. Sometimes God can't give you what's new until you let go of what's now. You keep praying for increase, but increase requires space. He's not taking things away to hurt you. He's making room for what you prayed for. When God starts removing, it can feel like you're losing control. You can't see what he's doing, and you don't understand the timing. But that's where faith is tested. Can you trust God in the transition? Can you believe that his plan is better than your comfort? Because sometimes his replacement doesn't come immediately. There's a pause between the removal and the reveal. And that pause is where trust is perfected. Job lost everything: his wealth, his health, his family. Yet even in that loss, God was orchestrating a replacement. When it was over, Job received double for everything he had lost. That's what God does. He doesn't just restore, he multiplies. But the double didn't come until after the loss. You can't have resurrection without crucifixion. Something has to die before something greater can rise. Even Jesus experienced divine removal. On the cross, he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" It was the ultimate moment of loss. Heaven was silent, friends were gone, pain was unbearable. But 3 days later, the removal turned into resurrection. The cross looked like the end, but it was the doorway to redemption. What looked like loss was actually replacement. The old covenant giving way to the new. So if God is taking something from you in this season, don't fight him. Don't cling to what he's trying to change. You may not understand it now, but you'll thank him later. Because what God removes, he replaces with purpose. He never leaves a void unfilled. He always trades up. That's why the breakup led to healing. The setback birthed strength. The closed door led to destiny. Everything God removes, he replaces with something greater. Sometimes that something greater isn't a thing, it's you. He removes your fear and replaces it with faith. He removes your bitterness and replaces it with peace. He removes your dependence on others and replaces it with confidence in him. You start realizing that the real replacement isn't external, it's internal. God's greatest work isn't what he gives you, it's who he makes you. There are moments when you'll want to reach back and grab what's gone, but remember, what God removes is never meant to return. He's too wise to give you back what he's already replaced. You may not see it yet, but everything you lost will make sense when you step into what's next. The person who left made room for peace. The job you lost created space for purpose. The plan that failed cleared the path for something that finally fits your calling. So don't mourn too long over what's missing. God hasn't abandoned you. He's adjusting you. Every subtraction in your life is a setup for divine addition. You may feel the emptiness now, but soon you'll see the exchange. Because when God removes something, it's never to leave you empty-handed. It's to prepare your hands to hold something bigger. He's not just taking away, he's making way. He's not just removing, he's replacing. And when you see what he's about to do next, you'll realize that the loss was never really a loss. It was SAR, divine trade for greater glory. Shit. You can't step into a new season with an old mindset. Every new season, God calls you and demands a new level of thinking. You can't expect new results while carrying old patterns. You can't walk into new opportunities with a mindset built for survival when God is trying to teach you how to thrive. What limits most people is not a lack of talent, favor, or opportunity. It's the inability to renew the mind. Because elevation isn't just about where you go. It's about how you think when you get there. The Israelites were delivered from Egypt, but Egypt was still in their minds. They left the land of bondage, but the mindset of bondage left scars in their thinking. God performed miracle after miracle, parting the Red Sea, providing manna from heaven, leading them by a pillar of fire. Yet they still murmured, doubted, and looked back. Why? Because freedom on the outside means nothing if you're still chained on the inside. You can't walk into the promised land thinking like a slave. And the same principle applies today. You can't step into destiny while clinging to the mentality of your past season. Every level of life requires a mental upgrade. When God promotes you, He's not just changing your position. He's challenging your perception. He has to renew your thoughts before He can release your next. Sometimes we ask for blessings that our minds aren't ready to hold. We pray for expansion, but we still think small. We ask for abundance, but we still operate in scarcity. We want to lead, but we still think like followers. God can't pour the new into an old mindset because it will always leak through. The truth is, transformation starts in the mind long before it shows up in your life. Romans 12:2 says, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." That means the quality of your life will always rise or fall to the level of your thinking. If you want to step into a new season, you have to start thinking like the person that season requires. You can't think like a victim and live like a victor. You can't think like the broke and expect to walk in overflow. You can't think with fear and expect to move in faith. Sometimes God delays promotion because He's still developing your perspective. You might be ready physically, emotionally, even spiritually. But if your mind hasn't shifted, the new season will break you. That's why He isolates you before He elevates you. The waiting season is the training ground for your thinking. He uses wilderness moments to reprogram your beliefs, stretch your capacity, and strengthen your vision. It's not punishment, it's preparation. A new mindset doesn't come easy. It means unlearning old lessons. It means challenging thoughts that kept you comfortable but limited. It means letting go of the labels people put on you and the lies you told yourself. Sometimes the hardest battle is not the one around you, but the one within you. The war between who you were and who you're becoming is fought in your mind first. You have to start talking differently, seeing differently, and believing differently. You can't speak defeat and expect victory. You can't surround yourself with negativity and expect growth. You can't rehearse past pain and expect to experience new purpose. If you keep feeding your old mindset, you'll starve your future. The next version of you will demand thoughts rooted in faith, discipline, and expectancy, not fear, doubt, or excuses. Look at Peter in the Bible. As long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, he walked on water. The moment his mind shifted from faith to fear, he began to sink. The environment didn't change. His mindset did. And that's a picture of life. You can be in a new place but still sinking if your mind hasn't shifted. You can have new opportunities but still feel stuck because you're thinking from an old season. Your mindset determines your movement. Renewing your mind requires intentional effort. It's not a one-time prayer, it's a daily practice. Every morning, you have to challenge negative thoughts and replace them with truth. You have to speak what God says, not what fear says. You have to feed your faith more than your frustration. The enemy doesn't need to take your blessing. He just needs to infect your belief. If he can keep your mind trapped, your life will follow. There's a reason the enemy always attacks the mind first. Because if he can get you to doubt who you are, you'll never walk in who you were meant to be. If he can convince you that your past defines you, you'll never step into your future. But once your thinking changes, everything changes. When your mind aligns with God's word, doors start opening. Confidence returns, peace flows, and purpose comes alive. Think about a computer. When the software is outdated, it can't handle new programs. It starts crashing, freezing, slowing down. The hardware is fine, the problem is the system inside. That's how many of us live, trying to run new blessings on old programming. You have to update your internal system to match the future God is calling you to. The new season won't operate on old instructions. God is calling you to think higher, believe deeper, and dream bigger. Stop letting past disappointments define your expectations. Stop letting the old you lead the new you. You are not who you were. You are who God is shaping you to be. And the only thing standing between your now and your next is your mindset. So when God starts challenging your thoughts, when he confronts your fears, when he exposes your doubts, when he pushes you to think differently, don't resist it. That's him preparing your mind for your miracle. The door to your next season isn't locked. It's waiting for your mindset to catch up. It's time to release the old way of thinking. The one that said you're not enough, that you've failed too many times, that you'll never make it. That mindset kept you surviving, but God wants you to start thriving. This season demands a renewed mind, one that sees possibilities where others see problems, one that speaks life when others speak lack, one that trusts God even when the path isn't clear. You can't step into a new season with an old mindset. The miracle you're praying for is already prepared. Now God is preparing you. When your thinking shifts, your life shifts. When your mind changes, everything around you starts to align. The moment you stop rehearsing what was and start believing what can be, that's the moment you step into the fullness of your next level. Because the doorway to destiny doesn't open with your hands. It opens with your S-mind. Every shift exposes what can't go with you. When God begins to move you into a new season, not everything and not everyone is meant to make the journey with you. Every divine shift carries a separation. It's not rejection, it's revelation. It reveals what was never truly connected, what was only seasonal, and what can't handle the weight of where God is taking you next. You don't lose people, positions, or patterns by accident. You lose them because the next dimension demands a different environment. There's always a moment in transition when the shaking begins. Things that used to fit start to feel tight. People who once understood you suddenly don't speak the same language. What used to feel peaceful now feels uncomfortable. That's the sign that the shift has started. God begins to sift your surroundings, testing what's stable and exposing what's not. Because if it can't survive the shaking, it can't sustain the assignment. Every shift is designed to reveal alignment. When the Spirit of God begins to elevate you, He exposes what isn't anchored in purpose. It's not punishment, it's protection. He knows that certain relationships, habits, and thought patterns may have helped you survive your last season, but will sabotage your next one. So he allows pressure to come, not to break you, but to identify what's not built to last. Some connections look strong until the storm hits. Some loyalties sound loud until the testing begins. The shift doesn't destroy, it discerns. It separates the real from the temporary. Think about a rocket. Before it can enter new heights, it has to shed parts of itself. The boosters that help it take off aren't meant to stay for the whole journey. They detach once their job is done. If they don't, the weight would cause the rocket to burn out before it ever reaches orbit. The same principle applies to your life. Some people were boosters. They were meant to help you launch, not live in your orbit. If God didn't allow the separation, you'd never reach the altitude He destined for you. That's why when God shifts you, you often feel lonely. The crowd gets smaller, the noise gets quieter, and the support gets thinner. It's not that people turned against you, it's that God turned your direction. You can't bring everyone into the next season because the next season requires focus, not familiarity. Some people are tied to your history, not your destiny. They're comfortable with who you were, not ready for who you're becoming. God has to expose that because you can't carry emotional baggage into a divine breakthrough. Sometimes the exposure happens subtly. A conversation shifts. A promise isn't kept. A situation brings out someone's true heart. You start seeing patterns that were always there but hidden behind convenience. Don't ignore those revelations. They're clues from heaven. God is showing you who's truly for you and what no longer belongs. The shift reveals the difference between connection and attachment. Connections feed your growth, attachments drain it. Even Jesus experienced this. When He was transfigured on the mountain, He didn't take all 12 disciples, only Peter, James, and John. Because not everyone can handle every version of you. Some people can walk with your calling, but not your transformation. They love the version of you that serves their comfort, but they resist the version of you that challenges their complacency. The higher God takes you, the smaller your circle becomes. But that's not loss, that's divine order. When the shift starts exposing things, don't chase what God is revealing. Let it fall away. The pruning is painful, but it's purposeful. In John 15, Jesus said that every branch that bears fruit must be pruned so it can bear more fruit. That means even what's working may still need to be cut. Sometimes God removes good things to make room for greater things. The exposure is not to embarrass you, it's to empower you. He's saying, you don't need that anymore. I'm preparing you for more. The hardest part of elevation is realizing that some of what helped you build won't help you grow. That job that once gave you stability now limits your creativity. That friend who once encouraged you now resents your progress. That mindset that once protected you now prevents you from trusting again. Every shift demands surrender, letting go of what feels safe so you can step into what's sacred. The truth is, not everyone is equipped for your next chapter. Some people can only handle your struggle, but not your success. They were present for your pain, but absent for your progress. When God exposes that, it's not betrayal, it's clarity. You needed to see it so you wouldn't carry dead weight into destiny. The exposure hurts because you cared, but if you cling to what's fading, you'll delay what's forming. God will never let you lose something essential to your purpose. If it fell away during the shift, it was never meant to last. If the door closed, it wasn't your door. If the person walked away, they were never assigned to your destination. The shaking only removes what's unstable. What's rooted in him will remain. And here's the beautiful part. Once the exposure is complete, you'll realize how much lighter you feel. You'll see that the things you thought you needed were only holding you back. The silence that felt lonely becomes peace. The pruning that felt painful becomes power. Because when God strips away what can't go with you, He's not just taking, He's making room for new growth. So if you're in a season where things are shifting and people are falling away, don't panic. Don't chase what God is shaking off. Let the exposure do its work. You're not being abandoned, you're being advanced. The removal is part of the revelation. The shaking isn't the end of your story, it's the preparation for your next chapter. Everything that's being revealed in this season is God's way of refining your focus and protecting your future. The shift will always show you what's strong enough to stay and what's weak enough to go. And when the dust settles, you'll realize that the exposure didn't destroy you. It delivered you. Because every shift exposes what can't go with you, so that you can finally move freely into what's waiting for you. The version of you that's emerging is divinely designed for destiny. There comes a time in every believer's life when God starts to stir something deep inside of you. Not because you're broken, but because you've outgrown the version of yourself that once fit your old season. The discomfort you feel isn't punishment. It's evidence that transformation has begun. The same way a caterpillar can't remain in its cocoon forever, you can't stay in the same form when God has called you to soar. You can't fight destiny and expect to find peace. God is molding you, stretching you, refining you. Because the version of you that is emerging is not random. It is divine design. Every season of growth demands a different version of you. The version that survived the storm isn't the one that will thrive in the sunshine. The you that walked through the valley isn't the same you that's climbing the mountain. Each version carries lessons, scars, and wisdom that prepare you for what's next. You had to be broken before you could be built. You had to walk through loss before you could learn how to lead. Every battle was building the blueprint of who you're becoming. The process may have been painful, but the pain had a purpose: to form the version of you that's ready for destiny. Too often, we pray for new levels while clinging to old patterns. We ask God for promotion, but refuse transformation. But God never elevates the old you. He evolves you first. You can't step into divine purpose with a survival mindset. You can't lead with fear, love with walls, or build with bitterness. God has to heal your heart, renew your mind, and strengthen your spirit before He can trust you with what He's planned. That's why the pruning hurts, why the waiting feels long, why the silence feels heavy. Because He's perfecting something inside you. He's not just preparing a blessing for you. He's preparing as you for the blessing. When God is preparing you for destiny, He often hides you first. Isolation is the incubator of transformation. That's where He works on your character, your patience, your obedience. Nobody sees it. Nobody celebrates it. You feel invisible, but God is doing invisible work. He's removing insecurity, reshaping your identity, and planting conviction where confusion used to live. The quiet season isn't wasted time. It's construction time. The version of you that's emerging is being built in the dark so you can shine in the light. Think of David. Before he was a king, he was a shepherd. While everyone else overlooked him, God was developing him. He was learning leadership, courage, and faith in the fields. He fought lions and bears when nobody was watching, because God knew that one day he'd have to face Goliath when everyone was watching. The version of David that ruled as king was designed in obscurity. Likewise, the version of you that will walk in destiny is being shaped where nobody sees you. Don't despise the hidden season. It's holy ground. When you start evolving, people around you may not understand. They'll expect the old you, the one who tolerated disrespect, who settled for less, who stayed silent to keep the peace. But God is raising a new standard in you. The version of you that's emerging has boundaries, clarity, and spiritual authority. You're no longer reacting, you're responding. You're no longer seeking validation, you're walking in revelation. The new you doesn't need to prove anything. You've been approved by heaven. This new version of you will also require new disciplines. You can't carry an old prayer life into a new dimension. You can't survive on yesterday's faith when tomorrow's challenges demand greater power. Destiny demands devotion. God isn't just calling you to a platform, He's calling you to the altar. The emerging you is more surrendered, more discerning, more dependent on Him. That's how you sustain success without losing your soul. The divine version of you isn't driven by ego, but by assignment. It's not about being seen. It's about being sent. When God elevates you, He expects you to reflect Him. That's why He's refining your motives and humbling your heart. Because He's not just making you influential, He's making you impactful. The new you doesn't chase opportunity. You attract it by alignment. When your spirit aligns with His will, destiny becomes your direction. It's easy to resist the change because transformation is rarely comfortable. You'll question yourself. You'll doubt if you're ready. You'll miss the familiar. But don't run back to who you were just because the new you feels unfamiliar. The pain of transformation is temporary, but the fruit of obedience is eternal. God didn't bring you this far to leave you half-finished. The same hands that broke you are the hands that will bless you. The fire you're feeling is forming something beautiful. When you look back, you'll realize that every tear watered your growth. Every delay refined your faith, and every disappointment redirected your destiny. You'll see how God took the fragments of who you were and formed the foundation of who you're becoming. The version of you that's emerging is wiser, stronger, and more stable. You no longer move out of emotion but revelation. You no longer live for approval but for assignment. You've been through too much to stay small. This is your season to stand tall. And when you step into that version, the one God has been shaping, doors will open not because of who you know, but because of us who you've becoming. Favor will follow you, not because you chased it, but because you became the kind of person who carries it. You'll realize that destiny was never about getting something new. It was about us becoming someone new. So don't rush the process. Don't curse the cocoon. Let God finish what He started. Because when He's done, you won't just recognize the new you. The world will see the glory of God through you. The version of you that's emerging is not an accident. It's an answer to a divine call, a reflection of God's craftsmanship, and a vessel for His glory. You've been processed for purpose, refined for relevance, and destined for destiny. This, right here, right now, is the unveiling of the new you that heaven designed long before you ever took your first breath. Beloved, as we come to the end of this message, the season of shifting your next level requires a new you. Understand this truth deep in your spirit. God never shifts your season without shaping your soul. Every shaking, every separation, every silent season had divine intention behind it. What felt like loss was actually a lift. What looked like rejection was really redirection. God wasn't breaking you down. He was breaking you open, preparing you to become the person He always knew you could be. This season of shifting isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to define you. You're not going backward. You're being refined forward. The pain you've endured was the push that birthed purpose. The confusion you've battled was the classroom of character. You had to outgrow what was comfortable so you could step into what was called. So don't fear the shift. Don't fight the pruning. Don't mourn what's leaving your life when heaven is making room for what's next. The people, places, and patterns that fell away were never meant to carry the weight of where God has taken you. He's doing surgery on your soul, removing the familiar so He can release the future. This next level will not require a better version of your old self. It will require a new you, a wiser you, a healed you, a disciplined you, a faith-filled, focused, fire-tested you. The old you survived, but the new you will thrive. You're stepping into a dimension where peace is your portion, purpose is your posture, and God's presence is your power. So lift your head, wipe your tears, walk boldly into your new season. You've been shifted, separated, and stretched, but now you're ready. The version of you that's emerging is unstoppable, unshakable, and undeniable. You've been prepared for such a time as this. This is your season of shifting, and your next level is calling for the new you.